I'm going to show you how to free stuck brake pistons on a caliper that you're rebuilding, on a caliper that has been removed from the car. If you still have it attached to the car, my suggestion is to remove the caliper from the disc and pump the brakes and allow the car's hydraulics to push the pistons out. However, that's not always an option depending on the condition of your brake system. In my case, I'm rebuilding the whole system, so I can't do that. What I've done is I've made up an adapter, as you can see here, using one of the old brake hoses. And on the one end of the brake hose, I have adapted it using a very simple plumbing adapter. You could probably get one at any auto parts store. And I've taken it to a quick disconnect fitting for my air compressor, so that I can very simply thread this hose onto any of my calipers to free the stuck pistons. Now, before we continue, a couple quick safety points that you really gotta be aware of when you're doing this. One, when you apply the air pressure to the caliper, you cannot have your hands, fingers, or any other parts anywhere close to the inside of your caliper. Because I've had these launch themselves across the room before. You could easily break, lose, or sever a finger. There's a lot of force at play here, especially when you hook this up to 120 psi coming out of your air compressor. It just won't end well for you. Second, wear safety glasses when you do this. If there's any fluid left in here, oftentimes it'll go spraying everywhere. You don't want to get that in your eye, otherwise you'll be in for a bad time. Other tools you'll need for this is a hammer. Not necessarily one like this, but any metal hammer will do. An arrangement of C-clamps, and a few scrap pieces of plywood. The plywood is to act as your brake disc in the center of your caliper and give your pads something to press against. So you want something that's roughly the thickness of the brake disc on your car. I'm just putting the brake pads in here just as shims essentially. You could use wooden shims if you wanted to, but since the brake pads are designed to fit here, there's no reason not to use them. The reason for this is if you just put air in it right away without having any of this in here, if one of the brake pistons is not completely seized, it'll blow out first. And then you have a massive air leak and you won't get the other three to push out. Doing this allows them each to creep out until they hit the stop, which in this case is the piece of plywood. After that, we'll apply C-clamps to each of them individually and work them if we have to get them to pop out. So the next step is to get our earplugs, safety glasses, and turn the compressor on. So the way I like to do this is I have the regulator on my compressor turned all the way down to 0 psi, so when I hook this up there's no pressure acting on the caliper. Then I'll go over to the compressor and I will turn the pressure up slowly, causing the pistons to move out. If any of them don't, or if any of them are stuck, we'll work on them next. So here we go. I'll slowly turn it up. So as you can see, none of them have moved. So now we must very carefully try to have them pop out. I'm going to take my hammer and I'm ever so gingerly and lightly going to tap the caliper. Oftentimes this will free one or two of them up and allow them to pop out. In this case, these ones are too stuck for that to happen. So I have turned the air off. We're going to disconnect the air line. We're going to do that every time that we're changing anything or working on the caliper. I'm going to take out the pads and the shims and spacers, and I'm going to use a C-clamp, and I'm going to push all of them back into their bores as far as I can go. This may seem counterintuitive since we're trying to get them out, but what this does is it breaks them free of where they are currently stuck, and oftentimes will allow them to then move forward. So you can see that our hose is currently, as I'm doing this, spraying out some rather nasty brake fluid. You don't want to get this on anything. That's why I'm working on a piece of cardboard here. I'm going to put a jar under our brake line. As I do this, to catch the remaining fluid that will come out. That's that one. Now I move on to the other two. You'll feel them loosen up as you do this and begin to move. And the old fluid coming out is a sure sign that they are moving back into their bores. So all except for one of them has retreated. I'm going to try the last one again. Maybe I'll get lucky and it will move. But it is very, very stuck. And will probably give us some trouble. There it goes. Okay. So we have now moved all of our pistons. Let's let a brake fluid out of our hose here. Yummy. So, I'm not going to try and set it up the same way I had it before. With a piece of plywood. And our two brake pads as shims. And we'll go and we'll apply the air once again. So we will attach our air line, just as before. And now we will turn up our air compressor. Two of them crept forward. It's a good start. Alright, so now we're going to turn the air back off again. Alright, so now I'm going to disconnect the air. Take out our shim. Get our C-clamp once again. And I'm now going to push them all back in their bores again. So what I'm aiming to do here is to work it back and forth. I'm going to pull it in with the C-clamp, the shims back in, apply the air, and pop it back out. I'm going to work it back and forth until it overcomes the sediment and corrosion that has it locked in place, and it will then break free and pop out of its bore. They all actually moved forward quite a bit from their resting positions. So, reinsert our shim stock, 2 pads, and this time I'm going to do something different. Keeping that well away from me, I'm going to apply all 120 psi at once by connecting this rapidly in hopes to blow them all out of their bores. Like that. So you can see in here that one of them has fully extended out and loosened off in its bore. So I'm now going to work all of them back in their bores once again. You'll notice when you do this that each time that they'll work themselves out a little bit further, and that they will retract a little bit easier as they work themselves free. So, in goes our shim. In goes our pad. Now, on the one that has freed itself, I'm going to place a C-clamp on it so that it can no longer pop out. and prevent the other ones from moving. I'm now going to use a piece of small plywood in here to prevent this one from blowing all the way out. Take my air once again and apply. And in doing this, once again, we'll take our C-clamp and work it back. And it goes. Goes our shim on this side, since you can't fit the brake pad and the C-clamp in there, and repeat. While it's sitting there, we're going to give it a little tap, see if we can't loosen anything else up. And repeat. I'm going to see if I can pop one of them all the way out now. I'm going to leave a little more space this time around. See if I can pop it a little further out. No, not ready yet. Work it back and forth a little more. But you will notice each time that you do this that they move in and out further, meaning you're making progress. I can go ahead and do this a few more times, and I'll bring it back when they pop loose. There's another one. See that both of these are now out and have engaged, so you can hear the air rushing past that one, which is why I put another shim in there to hold it back a bit against the seal. Otherwise all your air leaks out and it won't activate the other two. Now we've got 2 out of 4 loose. Just shim this so that the 2 that are free can't come too far out. Yeah, that'll work. So we're going to retract the last 2 stuck ones. Two shim stocks. Once again, apply air. So you can hear the two free ones on the left side here pop out. We continue to work these two, which are getting further and further out. There's one more. I'm going to retract this other one just a little bit to make it a little bit easier for me to get my shims into place. Last one's being a little stubborn. No, it's going to need a little more work. So what you heard me do there was my compressor dropped down to 100 psi, 120. It hadn't kicked on yet, so I drained some air out of it so that it would kick on and bring itself back up to 120. So I could get the full 120 to act on this. Hopefully we'll pop that one loose. No, she's being stubborn. But it's just a case where persistence will be rewarded. So I think what I'm going to try here, just to see if we can't free this up a little more, is I'm going to spray a little penetrant down inside the caliper body here. Doesn't really matter since I'm rebuilding it, so I'm not worried about damaging or swelling any seals. We're just going to slope it so that it all runs down into this lower bore. So now as that seeps down inside, we will retract that stubborn piston one more time. And hopefully it will pop free. Yeah, we definitely got some penetrant in there since it just sprayed all over my arm while I retracted the piston. That's good. There we go. And it's in the right spot. Hopefully, that little bit of lubricant will allow it to break free. Wow, it is a stubborn one, this. see, I probably can't. But if I can get a pair of pliers in there and turn it ever so slightly, it might be enough to break it free. Or at least help to break free some of the corrosion that's preventing it from sliding the rest of its way out. So just give myself a little more working room here by retracting the piston across from it. It is very stuck. 0% chance of moving that with a pair of pliers in this position. So we will be forced to simply continue what we're doing here. Although what I am going to try, since I'm rebuilding this, I don't care about the boot. I'm going to tear the boot out of the way. Spray a little penetrant in there. Hoping that when I retract the piston, that it will take some of that penetrant with it over top of the seal inside and lubricate it on its way out. It's just stuck on that last little bit there. You can feel it moving really freely in that first portion of its travel. We're getting close. Not quite, but it's moving much further out of its bore now than it did last time. It's definitely catching on a ring of corrosion. To keep working back and forth until we break it free of that. It can be a little bit frustrating, but there's really no better way to do it. What we're effectively doing here is each time the piston slams forward, it polishes and jams past a little bit more of that ring of corrosion. So you just gotta keep working it back and forth, like I keep saying, until it eventually polishes and breaks free of that last little bit. You can see that the piston has retreated, so that there is a gap all the way around here, and this outer wall is what has the corrosion on it, since it's aft of the seal. And water has gotten in here, moisture over time, and has corroded it. So the piston's coming up and it's stopping just before this outer edge. So what I'm going to attempt, and I don't know if I have the room to do it or not, is to try and polish that edge with just a little bit of Scotch-Brite, and hopefully remove just a little bit of that corrosion to allow this to move further forward. And hopefully pop out. Very difficult to get in there though. There it is. Success. stubborn one. So what you saw me do there is I took some of that Scotch-Brite, like I said before, and I just worked it around a little bit more. And finally freed this one up. So I'm only going to blow one of them out with air. The rest I'll take out with channel locks. So may as well get lucky. Some paper towel handy for that slime that's going to come out of it. So that's one piston. It's really important when you're pulling these out with channel locks that you grab the outer piston section there. Don't ever grab on the chrome surface. You don't want to nick or damage that. So you can see all the rusty slime on it. But it doesn't appear to be any pitting. And all the staining here will clean up. I grab the next one. Oops, cocked a little bit. Pop that back up a little bit with the C-clamp. Place. There's another one. Brings us to our last one here. It's stuck. I'm going to pop it back in a little bit more. Yeah, it's stuck. There it is. I'll try it again. It's not going to come out. What I think I'm going to do is squirt a little WD-40 on it under this boot. I'm not going to push it all the way back in because you never get it back out at this point. I'm just going to push it in a little bit. C-clamp. And try and work it out again with the channel locks. And there it is. Last one. And that's how you work out stuck pistons. Now there are other methods out there. Some people will use grease guns because you can get a lot more hydraulic pressure in the caliper with a grease gun than you can with your air compressor. The problem with that is then your entire caliper is filled with grease. And getting all that out is just, it's a pain. And especially if you can't split your caliper. And what I mean by that is some opposed piston calipers, such as this one, have a set of bolts. You can see here. So you can take the two halves apart. With these, you could probably clean all the grease out fairly easily. But the ones that are one piece, you're going to have a hell of a time. And compressed air is just much cleaner. Although, like I showed you, you got to work at it a little bit, but it will pop out and you can get it out using this method.